Good morning and welcome, Patriot Radio News Hour. I'm Joe Jaquint, CEO of the Patriot Trading Group, and our toll-free number, 800-951-0592. The website at allamericangold.com. And, well, here's the good news. March Madness, well, at least the month of March, is almost over. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to stop any of the madness, especially when it comes to what's going on politically, what's going on economically. The bond yield curves continue to invert. We've got, news out today that China has shut down Shanghai because of COVID. That's just going to, once again, unfortunately, it's going to make things worse before they make things better. But at least for a few minutes, we've got a pullback in oil. And I don't really know why, because it's not like, China has been shutting down cities all along. They don't stop buying oil. But, hey, less oil demand, all this of that problem, at least for one day, you've got a little bit of a reprieve. Gold's down about $15 today, and I will tell you, as I've been telling you, every single dip in this market is nothing more than a huge buying opportunity. So make sure you don't let this one pass you by as we continue to watch. I don't know if you saw President Biden over the weekend once again unable to stay on message and was calling for regime change. And then, of course, every country in the world came out and said, "Oh no, don't worry, right? He's just a crazy old man, Jason."
There's a lot of crazy old men doing crazy old man stuff, Joe. So we'll report it. We'll report the decisions that these guys make, and what we do is sell gold and silver, and that's your way of at least taking one little corner of this wacky world and solidifying a place where you're safe, Joe.
Yeah, and there's not very many places left to do it. $20 gold pieces today below 2,300, 2,295, and that's kind of my at this point where we're at in this situation that the whole world finds themselves in, this hyperinflated world. Japan, major central bank interventions trying to weaken their currency, and of course, obviously, we're slowly but surely turning into the Japanese central bank and buying all of these things. And of course, right now, we're pretending not to buy things. It's not going to last very long, but anything under $2,300 is a bargain right now, Jason.
I agree, Joe. I agree. I was looking at all the, as much as I can, on the weekend, I'll tune into different types of economic news, and man, it's just, they're going to give us about any kind of emergency news here in the near future to really make things seem really crazy. And really, it's simple. Joe Biden, the Fed, other central banks, Russia, they're just going to create a situation that hey, your standard of living is going down, Joe. They created the inflation. There doesn't have to be inflation. We had 150 years no inflation, Joe, but now it's here, and now it's really bad.
And you bring up a great point. On the gold standard, inflation didn't exist. Matter of fact, the only time there would be inflation was a war, and then as soon as the war ended, so did all the inflation. Everything, truly. In the words of Jay Powell, if you will, it was truly transitory inflation, because as soon as it was over, it would go right back to where it used to be. Unfortunately for all of us, transitory inflation was nothing more than an absolute myth, and now we're left struggling with how much more are things really going to cost. and how many people are going to fall out of the middle class, and how many more people are going to be dependent upon the government. Now the Biden administration, they want a billionaire tax and everything else. Get ready, because you know what? Sooner or later, they're going to have to tax the you-know-what out of everybody to try to pay for these things, especially at a time when the central bank, think about this, now they're going to get tough with, we're going to go 50 basis points. That's not tough. That's not tough. In the 70s, it was nothing for them to raise interest rates 3 and 4% in one move, and that's really what we need. But of course, not able to do it, and pricing is skyrocketing out of control. Over the weekend, there was a big article out about the cost of diesel fuel and its impact on the small trucking firms out there, saying that we're going to see a lot of bankruptcies in the small trucking business. And of course, already they're telling us we don't have enough truckers. And Jason, now they're talking about massive bankruptcies.
Yeah, that's right, Joe. And just to go back for a moment, when you're talking about, talking tough for interest rates, there is a little bit to the game plan of that, and that's because it seems when the Fed says, hey, things are going to get tough, we're going to go up, rates are going up, it does sort of help move the markets ahead of the rate hikes. Sort of gives them some room when they do go up, Joe, that maybe the thing doesn't crash until they get to almost 2%. And then they have some leverage to lower the rates and start printing again, Joe.
Yeah, that's probably, as good of a thought as any. Let's raise them as fast as we can, because we know we're going to have to lower them almost just as fast. We'll be back right after the break. 800-951-0592. And, all over America right now, people are talking about Russia and Ukraine. We're talking about inflation, right? We're talking about what crazy thing is Joe Biden going to say next, right? But maybe really what we should understand is all of this is just diversions and distractions. When you think about almost every central bank in the entire world is either in the process, right, or already using or experimenting with some form of a central bank digital currency. There was a great article, if you want to read a great article, nakedcapitalism.com. They did a great write-up about central bank digital currencies. And, think about, there's about 190 countries in the world. Central banks, when you talk about the ECB, right there, that's the European Central Bank. They oversee about 90 economies in the world. So when you look at how many different central banks are either working on, using, experimenting on some form of a central bank digital currency, understand that represents well over half of all the countries in the world. And when you think about it from a GDP perspective, it's kind of like the banking industry in America here, right? Really, there's only about 10 banks that matter. The 10 largest banks here in the United States hold 90% of all the deposits. Well, just so happens that these 90 or so central banks that are working on this central bank digital currency represent over 90% of the world's GDP. And really, when you think about what's really happening, the amount of power that is now going to be within these banks, and this is a reason, I kept wondering, why are all these countries buying gold? Everybody's buying gold. What's going on? Countries that would never buy gold were buying gold. Countries that hadn't bought gold in almost a century started buying gold. Countries that stored their gold in New York or London for over almost 100 years or more said, you know what? We want you to bring that gold home. And now I've got this horrible feeling, Jason, that this was all part of this plan that they already knew we're going to go to some form of a digital currency. And really, I think that the buying of all this gold is just in case we've got to do business with countries that we deem, like we deem Russia right now, or we deem North Korea unfavorable. We've got to have a different way of buying things, and this is exactly why, at least here at Patriot, one of the number one reasons we're hearing from customers, especially newer customers, I know what's coming. We're going to this digital dollar. They're going to start. I promise you this. It won't be long before they start banning purchases. You're only allowed to buy this. You're only allowed to buy that. And not just banning. I see scenarios where they limit how much ammunition you can buy. They're going to limit how much gasoline you can purchase or how much diesel you can buy. And if you exceed those, you either got to buy carbon tax credits or simply go without. I think there's going to be gold and silver is going to be a way to do business outside of this new digital currency, Jason.
You're right, Joe. And these countries are flushing currency. That's what they're doing. They're flushing currency. They know that I would rather hold gold than our own currency or U.S. currency or any currency because of the inflation. Check this out for a local inflation story. So my wife and I were talking to somebody last night, and they have kids and the family, and they rented a 3-bedroom apartment, about $2,000. So I went the house I was renting in Longmont, Joe, just a little less than 2 years ago I was renting for $1,950. So they're already at $2,000. They're coming to the end of a lease, and they're trying to figure out what to do because they don't want to stay in the 3-bedroom apartment. They got more kids than they have rooms in the apartment for. And they were watching how, as the last few months of their lease are ticking off, that the price of rent to sign a new lease ahead of time, which these apartment complexes, I think they're actually trying to help. I think some of them are trying to help these people. Say, why don't you sign a lease? Sign a long-term lease. I mean, that's like gold. They really should. People that are renting apartments, you better consider that. And every month the price were going up. And then, Joe, every week the price is going up. Now she said almost every day when she checks what the lease will be on the apartment, it's going up every day. She says if she were to sign the lease today, it's $2,500 a month on this apartment. I mean, Joe, how do you even pay your bills? How does, and this is the thing, a lot of people can handle some of this inflation because some people have taken care of business. But when other people can't pay it, Joe, it affects everybody. These people that aren't going to pay their rent, ain't going to be able to buy food, they're going to be your problem. It's going to be everybody's problem here very soon, Joe.
Yeah, and really when you think about what it means, complete and total oversight. The banking system is no longer going to be, as we know it today, will no longer be necessary. The banks are like middlemen. Credit card companies are middlemen. The middleman is going to be gone. The central bank will retain complete oversight and control over the creation, the destruction, and the movement of money. It's something where if you went out to the Bank of International Settlements, back in 2020, they had a summit of the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. And again, this is I want to give credit here because this wasn't my research. This was Naked Capitalism. They wrote an article called "Unbeknown to Most, a financial revolution is coming that threatens to change everything." And in parentheses, and not for the better. So inside of some of the things that they've done at this summit of the International Monetary Fund, we don't know who's using a $100 bill today. We don't know who's using a 1,000 peso bill today. But with a central bank digital currency, the central banks, and it really needs to be banks, but the central bank, whatever central bank controls your money, right? So for us, it's the Federal Reserve, right? For Canada to be the Canadian Central Bank, the Euro, that'd be the EU. The central bank will have complete control over the rules and the regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability, and will also have the technology to enforce that use. So the IMF saying, hey, listen, we're going to know what everybody spent. The central banks are going to have the power to limit, to ban, right? And if you try to do something we don't want you to do, oh, by the way, we'll have the technology to actually enforce what it is that we want to enforce. And this is really what these guys, and again, think about this. This is at the International Monetary Fund and their big little summit with the Bank of International Settlements and all the other central banks out there saying, hey, listen, look at the power, the enforcement. We've got it all. This isn't about, look at how we can circumvent the middleman and make payments of things faster and more direct. Right, as a business owner, all of us business owners know when someone uses a credit card, you don't get paid that day. The money doesn't get into your account till a day later. If it's online, it's 2 days later. And of course, by the way, they're whacking you 3+% on top of it. So you're going to hear that. Oh, hey, that's going to go away. But what they're not telling you is now we have the power to do exactly what we want. And again, we're seeing that power being played out with all of these corporations. The big corporations are in bank with the central banks on these things, Jason. And again, if you actually take the time to research and look at what our own central banks are writing, what our own central banks are saying, what the Bank of International Settlements is writing, what they're saying, what the IMF is writing, and what the IMF is saying. Jason, this has all to do with power.
Yeah, absolutely. The Bank of International Settlements is sort of the central bank of central banks. You know, hey, you got the big club, so who's going to wrangle and decide how to, because Joe, if you're in a cartel, you got to make sure there's communications there, right? So that they come up with these just like in our government, the alphabet agencies that pop up every year. You got a new one every year for controlling whatever. And Joe's exactly right. Control. The federal government's not supposed to be controlling anything. They're just supposed to be here to protect us from foreign invasions and domestic, insurrections sort of thing, and no standing army, and let the states handle themselves. It's all, we're supposed to have like the Scottish system here in America, Joe. The tribes, you have your clans, right? And then the clans band together when there's a greater emergency, and then otherwise, hey, what happens to Colorado is Colorado. What happens to Arizona is Arizona. But no, the federal government and the controllers of society, hey, how can I steal from Colorado if they get to do what they want? It was just
digital IDs, yep. Facial recognition, all of these things are coming. How about this? June 2021, the Daily Telegraph in England. And there was a debate with the Bank of England, government ministries. They were talking about having a programmable digital currency. And here was the director of the Bank of England. There should be some socially beneficial outcome from the creation of this digital currency, preventing activity which is seen to be socially harmful in some or any way, and bring huge advantages for both government and central banks. Gee, who did they leave out? Huge advantage for government and central banks. Oh, the citizenry, Jason. Yep. That's who was left out.
Well, yeah, they're not here for us, Joe, are they? They say they are if you ask them directly questions, but how many times have we proven that they're there for their private interests, right?
Over and over and over again, this is what's coming. Just like I told you, stagflation was coming. This is what's coming, and you better be prepared. 800-951-0592 as we take a break from the daily distractions that all of you are probably talking about. And we focus in on, listen, very simply, everything I'm going to say today should not surprise any of you. This is what's coming next. However this little event plays out, and I'm talking about, the stagflation, the raising of rates, the crashing of the economy, right? This is a huge bubble. Remember the Warren Buffett indicator. Stocks, equities would have to fall 25% just to get back to the dot-com peak. This is how big the bubble is now. But think about the ability. The Fed could directly subtract taxes and fees from any account in real time with every transaction or every paycheck if they wished. There would be no more tax evasion. The Fed would have a complete record of every transaction made by everyone. Money laundering, terrorist financing, and other unapproved transactions would become extremely difficult. Fines, such as speeding, jaywalking, maybe an expired parking meter, could be levied in real time. The central bank digital currency, and of course, imagine, you don't have enough digital credits to pay your speeding ticket? Yeah, we're going to shut your car off. Car shut off till you can pay it. Central bank digital currency accounts were connected to a network of smart city surveillance. Nor would there be any need to mail out stimulus checks, tax refunds, or other benefits, such as universal basic income checks or food stamps. They could just be deposited directly into accounts. A central bank digital currency would allow government to operate at a much higher resolution if they wish. Now, what does that mean? Well, simply put, hey, we could target micro grants if you're of Hispanic descent, or if you're of African American descent, right? You could get a special stimulus. If you're of the right minority, who knows? If you're LBGQ, right, you could get extra credits put into your account. Right, if you're a business that doesn't use energy, whatever, right? You know, all these special interests now could be handled at a very, very high level. people that the government considered especially deserving would now be able to get extra credits. Other potential forms, including expiring dates for stimulus funds or welfare recipients. In other words, Jason, the government's like, okay, I'm giving you this $1,000, but you got 2 weeks to spend it, and if you don't spend it, you lose it.
Absolutely, Joe. That, and it's going to be more than that, Joe. I mean, the controls. We could sit here and speculate about all the ways that they are going to control our behavior in a digital currency. And what I feel like, Joe, that the more we think about it, or the more that people try to understand what it is going to be, that there's going to be more and more of what you just said, Joe, which is, hey, we'll give you some stimulus. Here you go. But here's the 5 places you can spend it, and you got 1 month, just like you said, Joe. Why do I feel like there's even more sinister ways of pushing economies and pushing people? And like you said also, Joe, the ESG scores that we've been covering for weeks now, that's also going to dictate how much of that money you get to spend, right?
Yeah, and again, we were telling you last week about the SEC and their new rules. This is a done deal, right? The SEC already voted to say, yep, we're going to put these rules in. It's a comment period. By the way, the final rule for these are publicly traded companies are going to be out in December. And oh, by the way, we want to know who you're doing business with, and are they consumer friendly, or are we considered carbon friendly? And if they're not, there's going to be repercussions. Already, according to the Financial Times, the central bank digital currency is going to go hand in hand with digital IDs. Guess what? Arizona did this last week. And I think our governor has done a fairly good job on a lot of things. I don't agree with everything he's done. And I'll tell you right now, I was horrified at what they did last week. We're the first state to approve digital IDs. This is another way they're going to connect. And again, Jason was talking about social credit score. Your digital ID and your central bank digital currency accounts are going to go hand in hand. They're going to either one of two things. They're either going to phase out, or they're just going to outright ban cash. I don't know which. I'm hoping for a phase out, but I'll tell you right now, things are bad enough. Cash is just gone. If things are bad enough, there will be no phase out. They're going to track everything that you do. They're going to tie it to a digital ID. They're going to have your credit history. They're going to have other forms. And this is the part that always gets me. And everything that I've been reading about this stuff, they always have this other bucket. And other information that we deem important. Right? That's where in that other column, that's where all of a sudden, hey, how much ammunition you can buy, or what type of ammunition you can buy, what gun you can buy, what gun you can't buy, how much fuel you can. Believe me, that's coming. They are going to get rid of gasoline and diesel engines, and one of the ways they're going to do it simply is going to be, oh, wait a minute, if you use this much fuel, well, that's a tax. Oh, that's a tax. Yeah, you use more than 50 gallons of gasoline this month, so we're going to levy a tax. And guess what? We just take it right out of your account. It's not like we're going to send you a bill, right? And when you do your taxes at the end of the year, and oh, by the way, we're going to have all these loopholes and all. It's just coming right out of your account. And if you don't got enough credits in it, guess what, Jason? You ain't buying anything. Got your gold put away yet?
Yep.
We'll be right back. Patriot Radio News Hour. Don't touch that dial. 800-951-0592. $20 gold pieces, $22.95, below $2,300 today. And again, I think that's kind of the new, for me anyway, anything below 2,300 is just a gift. We got 6 rolls of 1/10 ounce American Gold Eagles left. So we got this huge allotment of them. We've been selling. I can't even tell you. I don't even know. 40 or 50 rolls of 10th ounce we've sold this month alone. We're down to the last 6. Then there's going to be a big price increase, and by big I'm talking like $275, maybe more, and maybe completely not available. But I've got 6 rolls of 10th ounce left. There's 50 in a roll. They're $255, 1 through 49. You buy a whole roll of tenths or more at $250. But really, when you think about, hey, I got 6 rolls left, that's only 300 coins. That's all that's left on 10th ounce. And then we're going to see big prices shooting up. 800-951-0592. Silver continues to be horribly slow. You have to be patient. Almost every single day now, the premium above spot for silver hits a new all-time record high. It did it again today. There's very small amounts of silver out there. Silver's taking anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. So just be patient. But premiums, again, spot prices, it's almost becoming irrelevant. They're like, whatever. You paper guys can pretend all you want. But here's what's happening in the physical markets. Put that gold away, 800-951-0592. I wonder how much of this show, Jason, would they call this conspiracy theory? Because I'm going to tell you right now, this is no theory. This is what's going to happen.
Theory is taking a guess. Hey, this is where I think it's happening, but it's actually happening. So it's not. It's conspiracy. Someone is
right. There's a difference. There's a big difference between those two things, and the reason why I say it is because all as we're doing is reading the comments that are being made by the central banks, by the Bank of International Settlements, and by the IMF. This is standard operating procedure for the government. You think the CDC invented all these COVID protocols on the fly? You think Fauci just pulled that out of his butt? No, they had written about it years ahead of time. They actually had it on their website, exactly what they were going to do years before it happened. This is exactly what's going to happen, Jason.
That's correct, Joe. That's correct. And I think the inflation was pre-planned. I think, the COVID pandemic was pre-planned. I think the war in Russia is, these are all things that are planned to move society in a certain direction. And Joe, you were talking about the Buffett indicator earlier, which has been dropping the last few months. Why do I get the feeling that they're really trying as hard as they can to inflate their way out of this thing? Was bringing the market cap down to a reasonable number, 150% or 125%, right? Which that'd be a reasonable number. And in November, it hit its a high point of like 200 something, right? 201% for November.
Yeah, something outrageous.
Now it's down to 185 at the end of February. So we get into the end of March. Why do I feel like that number's good? And that's, Joe, it sure seems like that's what they're trying to do. They're going to try to inflate things out. I mean, the market is basically, like the Dow, for example, has been around 34,000 since last year. It's been at a high of like 36.8. I think it's gotten down to about 32 something, but really just kind of floating straight down that line, Joe. And this is why I said your house goes up 5% in 2022. That's a house pricing crash if everything else costs 25% more. I mean, that lease I just talked about, Joe, that was 25% on that one person's lease that we talked to yesterday. That's 25%.
Yeah, and it's absolutely ridiculous what rents are going for. Why do I got the feeling that this is going to be a whole different type of housing crash this time around, where only the very wealthy are going to be able to afford homes, and everybody else is going to be turned into renters. And again, in all of this stuff, there's these terrible undertones if you actually read what these banking institutions are saying about the use of, and they use the word desirable a lot, desirable social and political behavior, penalizing those that won't toe the line. You know, the Canadian truckers, that'd have been super simple. Scan every one of those trucks. That truck's tied to this person and his digital ID. Locked, frozen. You were out at GoFundMe, you gave money, you're frozen. I think about, you know, groups like the Proud Boys, or maybe it's the 3%ers, or whoever it may be, any type of affiliation to a group that they may not like or they don't want to have a part of. Hey, they're just going to freeze your transactions or simply delete your account. I mean, think about it. They just delete your account, suspend your account with a push of a button. No emergency use powers needed. Right? You know, right now, emergency use powers get these, allow these people to circumvent the rule of law. But now with the digital cards, hey, we don't need that. We'll just, your credit score got too low by deems of us. Button pushed. No more account for you. Patriot Radio News Hour. Final segment coming up. 800-951-0592. This is a straight-up profit-taking day. Oil rallied last week. Gold rallied last week. The stock market rallied last week. Everything's down today. All profit-taking. And that's just, you know, big companies making a few bucks. But we got to focus in. There's news out, and this is big. This is big. We told you last week that Russia is demanding payments for natural gas to Europe in rubles. Obviously, because they're like, hey, you won't let us use any other currency. The German economic minister made an announcement earlier this morning saying that Russia's demand is one-sided and a clear breach of contracts, saying the contracts must be honored under prior conditions. In other words, hey, you agreed to take euros, and we want to pay in euros. Of course, the problem is Russia's like, but you won't let us spend the euros. That means a payment in rubles is not acceptable. This is the German economic minister. And we urge the relevant companies not to comply with Putin's demand. The Kremlin has responded and says that the G7's refusal to pay Russia in rubles for gas will definitely lead to a halt in supplies. That has not happened yet. But believe you me, if Russia shuts off the gas, Jason, this is going to take inflation to a whole different level.
Yeah, Joe. How many times have we heard of the different sectors of the world having oil problems? You know, the terrorist attack in Saudi Arabia, and now the problems with who's gonna choose a side and which side you're gonna be on. So obviously Germany's decided, look, hey, we're with the Europeans. Unfortunately,
well, guess what though? Not to miss a beat here. The United Arab Emirates. Okay, remember them and the Saudis.
Yep.
Right? They're not on our side on this. Russia will always be a part of OPEC, and we need to respect them. So that was the UAE today. So Germany saying that they will not pay for gas and rubles. Of course, Germany has been the big holdout on banning all of Russia's oil exports. At least for right now, saying they will not pay for gas, natural gas and rubles, and Russia's saying, Jason, if that's the case, we're going to shut you off, and that's just going to take the energy markets to levels none of us want to see.
That's correct, Joe. That's correct. You know, at some point, Germany was going to make a decision because they basically forced all of these European nations to choose a side. So I don't think Germany was ever going to choose the side of Russia. So it's going to happen, Joe. It sure looks like it's going to happen, right?
Yeah, and that's going to be, I don't know. I mean, we don't have the ability, and Europe doesn't have the ability to take liquefied natural gas from the U.S. We can't make that up. It's too big of a number. And again, these are just awful things that none of us want to see. But this is something where if this happens, you're going to see probably $150 crude natural gas. Who know? I don't even know what would it be, $10 something here. Natural gas equivalent in Europe, that'd be probably like crude oil at $400 or $500 a barrel. That kind of thing that we're talking about. Gold would for sure be at new all-time highs. $20 gold, $2,295, and 10th ounce gold eagles, $255, 50 or more at $250. 800-951-0592.